of Light. Lore of Light really seems to be a buffing lore. Doesn't really seem to have a whole lot of offensive capabilities as far as just like casting a magic missile across the table and destroying something. But it really is going to help Empire with some of their special abilities that they have with the warrior priests, the chariot things that they ran on. I can't remember what it's called, the altars, I think. And casting those bound spells that they have, and really just stimulating the army to stand and fight and not run. Again, it's just one of those things. It's an amplifying or a augmenting lore. It seems to really focus on keeping units around, making them auto-rally, that kind of stuff. In my opinion, my favorite spell in this one is just Flawless Protection. It's a 6+ to cast. It's an augment spell with a range of 24. All attacks against the unit shooting or close combat suffer a -1 penalty to hit until the start of the caster's next magic phase. So you're shooting at them, things like that. Also, if you're shooting at them with a something like a cannon, you have to roll a 4+ to even shoot at them. It's kind of like the Storm Banner for the Skaven. So it's kind of a nice protection spell to keep you from getting absolutely torn up by gun lines and things like that. Also, it works in close combat. So if you're fighting something in close combat, they're -1 to hit you. Lore of Life. In this spell, or in this lore, my favorite thing happens to be the third spell, Thorns and Vines. It's only an 8+ to cast, so it's pretty easy to get off. The biggest benefits I see to this spell is that it makes you only miscast if the spell is successful and it goes through. The wizard that cast it only miscasts if he rolls... Oh, sorry. If he miscasts, he rolls double 6 at any point in time. After he's cast this, he rolls a further d6. Anything above a 2 or up, the miscast is ignored. The other great thing about it is that it buffs all the other spells in the Lore of Life. Things like, for instance, the Earthblood. Normally it grants you a 5+ regeneration. When you have Thorns and Vines in effect, it's a 4+ regeneration, and so forth. It goes through the whole Lore of Life and buffs all the other spells. I think there's one in there that it doesn't do anything to, but either way, Thorns and Vines is a great protection spell for your wizard if he can cast it. If he knows it, for instance, because you get it off on an 8+. If the enemy doesn't stop it, lets it go through, or isn't successful at dispelling it, you have free reign to really let go and roll all your dice at whatever of the spells you really want to go off. And if you should happen to roll double 6 and miscast, it's only going to affect you on a 1. So again, it's great for your wizard, and it's great for buffing all the other great spells in the Lore of Life. A lot of good damage spells in there. Lore of Heavens. Everything's kind of the same in this lore. Casting values are just the major change. There's a couple of different effects that are different. My favorite spell is the Comet. I just like the way that works now. The fact that you can buff it by, increasing the casting value so that it starts with more tokens. The way the strength and everything's worked out, I think is great. But definitely look into the Comet. It's a great spell. My 2 favorite lores this edition, Lore of Shadows, Lore of Death. Lore of Shadows, my favorite one is the Penumbral Pendulum. I hope I said that right. Anyway, it's a direct damage spell. Extends straight forward. It's basically like shooting a Skaven Warp Lightning Cannon. Goes forward d6, 6d6 inches. So I think that's 36 inches that it can go forward. And basically counts as a cannonball hitting everything in the line at strength 10. So you don't roll an artillery dice to see what your strength is. It's just 10. So it's like that Warp Lightning Cannon, but better. Finally, Lore of Death. This one's really scary, as an ogre player anyway. The number 6 spell, the Purple Sun of Zufrus, or Zurius. Basically, you set a template down. If you cast it, it's a 15+ to cast. Set a template down, nominate which direction you want it to go, roll an artillery dice, and times that number by 3. So it's capable of going up to 30 inches in the direction you point. So you can put it on one side of my ogre army, point so that it goes down the line, go all the way down the line if you rolled a 10, 30 inches. Every model that gets touched by this template as it passes over them has to take an initiative test. If they fail, they're removed. No saves whatsoever. That's amazing and amazingly scary. Imagine doing that to like a Saurus Warrior army or something, along that lines with low initiative. You're going to absolutely devastate armies with that spell. So in closing, the magic section now for fantasy. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. Makes me a little bit jealous because Ogre Magic isn't so great. You know, we have a low casting value, but it's a dying magic. It really needs to get a new addition to the rulebook so that we can have some of the cool benefits and buffs that the newer Magic section has gotten. Anyway, guys, this video is running a little bit long. Scrag 101, checking out of here. So I figured if I was going to split this up, I might as well add on a little bit more that I wanted to say. The thing that I wanted to cover was wizard protection. It seems very vital now that you protect your wizards, giving them magical items that can cause them not to miscast if you have that ability. Give them ward saves, give them all kinds of stuff that, you know, potentially saves your wizards. The way that I see Magic playing out now is you have a couple of different options. One, if you plan to throw a lot of dice at spells and your wizard is susceptible to miscasts, the thing to remember, again, is that average roll. On the miscast chart, the average roll is a 7, and that isn't too bad if your guy rolls a 7. Well, at least it isn't too bad for the wizard. You do lose d6 amount of power dice, but your wizard is okay. However, the unit that he's in, potentially you're killing guys standing all around him. That's a bad thing. So you want to do a couple of things. One, either run your wizard solo, not in a unit. It's a little more dangerous because he can get targeted by things a little bit easier, but he does save a unit from just getting demolished while he's standing in it. Two, make sure your wizard has some kind of spell protection on him, whether it's a magical item. You know, I'm looking at some of the new magical items that they give for casters to take with them, and whether it's arcane items or talismans, things like that. You know, a talisman, you could stick a 45-point talisman on one of your, you know, level 4 wizards. It's half his points value, but at least now he's got a 4-up ward save. I'm not 100% sure on, let's see here real quick. It does look like the wizard can use saves against some of these things. For instance, you know, 5 through 6, you center a template on them. So, like, ward saves and stuff do look like they can save the wizard if he gets pounded by one of these high strength, you know, super bad miscast results. And miscasting is definitely bad now. Some mages are safe from it. The Lizardman Slan, you know, they can have the ability to ignore miscasts, which is really cool. Or they can even have the ability to pass the miscast off to another wizard within a certain range. And that can be really, really devastating. You know, you just be popping heads on other units in your enemy's army. So that's one thing that I did want to cover was tactics on where you're going to be putting your mages now, because mages are both going to be a great offensive tool, but also a devastating offensive tool against yourself, potentially. You know, if he decides to roll a ton of dice at something, and really the way that I've been rolling it out on paper, or at least on my desk, these spells that are needing, you know, 18 pluses to cast, you're throwing 4 and 5 dice at it, if not 6 dice, and the chances of seeing two sixes in there is pretty good. You're going to be seeing a lot more miscasts, which means you're going to want to see a lot more spell protection or miscast protection for your wizard. Definitely consider not running the wizard with a unit, so he's solo, so that if something happens to him, he's not affecting all the units around him. But, you know, that does open him up, so you're going to have to play a little bit more strategically with your wizards. You can't just leave them out in the open, and it's going to be scary leaving him in a unit, because potentially he's killing, you know, 4 or 5 guys standing around him in a blocked unit, vaporizing a couple knights. I mean, you're not going to get armor saves against some of these strength 10 hits. Just ward saves, it looks like. Anyway, guys, Strag 101, I just want to throw this in at the end of the video in part 2 of the magic that I'm really liking some of this new change to the magic casting, as well as making it a little bit more dangerous for those, you know, big casters out there that are going to be dropping, you know, 4 or 5 dice at a time on these things, it's really, really going to chance them, give them something to think about, meaning that they're going to have to take points invested in things like, you know, stuff that stops miscasts or stuff that helps protect them if they do miscast ward saves. But on the other hand, you're not going to see Dispel Scroll caddies anymore, because you can only have one Dispel Scroll in the army now. So I know a lot of people just used to load up a level 4 wizard with 2 or 3 scrolls and then stick, you know, a magic rod that increased their casting. I can't even remember what it's called now. But some of the stuff now is pretty scary, and because you can only take 1 scroll, might as well invest the points in something to keep your wizard alive, because more than likely you're going to see miscasts happen, and when they do happen, they're going to be pretty devastating to the wizard and the unit that he's with. Anyway guys, Scrag 101, signing out.